Hello, welcome to Creativity Boost podcast. Today, it's a pleasure to have on the show a veteran as far as the business, corporate, and entrepreneurial world is concerned. She goes by the name Stephanie Warlick. There's so much to say about her, and so I'll leave that to her to help us get to know her better. But we're going to be talking about something really compelling that we have tagged how to foster an entrepreneurial spirit in the corporate world of business. I believe that you're going to find lots of value in our conversation today. And so on that note, I'm going to bring her on to say hi. Hi, Stephanie. How you doing?
Hello, how are you? I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure to have you today. Do you want to tell us a bit about yourself as we get this started?
Sure, I'm a small business consultant. I recently started the business about a year ago after 30 years of being in the workforce in a diverse set of business areas. I love running small businesses and coaching individuals how to be successful in the corporate space.
Wow. Now, there's something that really captivated me when I met you, and it was the title of your upcoming book, The Owner's Mindset, talking
Yeah,
about how to foster an entrepreneurial spirit at every level. Wow, that's a very big that's a big and bold statement. And that's
yeah.
what jumped at me when I met you. Now, do you want to tell us about what inspired you for that book? I know the book is in the works, but do you want to just
Mhm.
tell us a brief about what inspired you about the book and why you chose to pick that topic, fostering entrepreneurial spirit? What's the benefit of that? Can we start off with that?
Sure. The benefit is for individuals. So, to foster an entrepreneurial spirit, what sparked it was my coaching in what I call the stand in the gap method. And that is the methodology that I used in the corporate world when I haven't worked for myself. And I have spent a lot of time contemplating how did I come up with this work ethic or this style of behavior that has caused me to be successful, to get the raises and the promotions and the top performance appraisals that I got? And how do I teach my peers or those that I coach to embody those characteristics? And so that's what I call the entrepreneurial spirit, because so what I came back down to was that it was my experience as a small business owner that taught me how to do certain things, how to think like an owner, so that I could help the corporate space that I'm in even more successful.
Wow, that's really, really interesting. Now, do you want to, I know you said a bit about the entrepreneurial spirit, but I think we need to unpack it a little bit more. What
Sure.
is the entrepreneurial spirit exactly, at least from your perspective?
There were at least three things that I've unpacked as the entrepreneurial spirit. I'm actively interviewing because I'm still defining what I have inside me is hard almost to put to words because it's just the way I behave every day. So what I've been doing is interviewing other business owners to really get the words that they see as to who are the people that excel in the workplace and can I teach those skills? My premise is that I can teach the skills that someone needs to be successful. But the three things that I've definitely identified are creativity, the ability to overcome risk or be risk adverse, and the ability to stand in the gap. And again, staying in the gap for me is to taking on responsibilities that maybe aren't my job. They are things that I might be fearful of. They are things that I don't have knowledge in, but I'm willing to jump in and take those things, take them head on and solve that problem, becoming a problem and a solution provider for the organization.
Wow, that's really interesting. You mentioned creativity. You mentioned what are the two others? Can you say it again?
Yep. Stand in the gap. That is taking on things that are not necessarily in your immediate wheelhouse, whether
Yeah.
it's from a skill set or job or swim lane. And then the third one is the ability to take risk and mitigate risk and identify risk.
Wow. So for those listening to us, creativity, the ability to stand in the gap, and the ability to identify risk. These three things are major components in fostering the entrepreneurial spirit. And that, in my own estimation, is phenomenal. Yeah. So what are the challenges that you faced in the corporate world trying to foster this kind of attitude, this entrepreneurial spirit? Because one thing I know for sure is that in the corporate world of business, there are lots of challenges. There are lots of bureaucratic bottlenecks that could hamper, these kinds of attitudes. So, what do you have to say about the challenges you faced since you started championing this ideology?
Yeah, that's a great question. There definitely are some bureaucratic bottlenecks, and although I really am traditionally a rule follower, sometimes I guess you need to go outside of what is the expected norm, and that plays out like this. A lot of people might say, that's not my job. Stay in your swim lane. That's my responsibility. Well, when I identify something that is a gap that no one's doing, it needs to be performed, or I'll give you a better analogy. When you're walking down the hall, if you see a piece of garbage, are you the person that picks it up and throws it away because it's not supposed to be there and that's in the best interest of the company? Or are you the
Hmm.
person that walks by it and says, that's not my piece of garbage?
Hmm.
So sometimes people don't want you to pick up the garbage and stand in a space that's not really your job, and they feel threatened. So, and maybe in more traditional governmental jobs, that's not your job and you can't do another job. But I always go with the owner mindset, and the owner mindset is what's in the best interest of the company. And if it's in the best interest of the company, then I'm going to do it, and maybe ask for forgiveness afterward if somebody doesn't like it.
All right. So now let's talk about creativity, because the theme of this show obviously is creativity boost, and the general idea is to help people who have gifts, skills, talents, experiences, knowledge, expertise go from idea to tangible and profitable creations, go from creation to cash flow. And it doesn't matter if this is in the corporate world of business. We need more creativity in the business world, in the corporate world, in corporate America, or in corporate North America. So, talking about creativity, what would you say is your definition of creativity as it intersects with the corporate world of business?
Creativity is the ability, in my mind, to think outside of the box. And when we talk about the corporate world, it's not just one way to solve a problem, but it's actively collaborating, it's thinking about, it's maybe taking mind maps and drawing it out and really just brainstorming. I have found that I am more creative when I meditate and I actually breathe and give myself space. When I work more, I'm less creative. So I think that's really important for folks to consider. And no idea is a bad idea. It
Hmm.
really is worth, and that I think folks keep their ideas in their head because they're like, oh, somebody will think that's stupid, or maybe I shouldn't do that, or that's going to be too hard. And I just go for it. And I think all creative ideas need to be kind of put out there into the space and see where they go.
Wow. Okay, now that you said that, I want us to take another step into the domain of leadership, because that's something I also understand that you are passionate about. So, in the realm of leadership, what do you think people who are leaders need to do more in order to foster an entrepreneurial spirit in their organizations, in their domain where they lead, to make the place better? What would be your response to
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing is to teach people. There's nowhere in any of our education, in our high school, bachelor's degrees, those kinds of degrees, perhaps masters. I never got a master's, so I don't know. But no one teaches you how to be creative. No
Hmm.
one teaches you how to think outside of the box, or says, hey, you have a white canvas here, just clean slate, just throw ideas at the board and let me hear all your ideas. We don't really teach people how to do that. And much of our younger generation is expected to be told exactly what they're supposed to do to accomplish A, B, and C.
Hmm.
And I think not only we need to start with, I'm not telling you exactly what you want to do. I want you to figure it out, and I want to hear your perspective, because the diversity of perspectives that we get is what makes all of the great ideas come to fruition.
Okay, now let's talk about collaboration and innovation across teams. What would you say is the impact of collaboration among teams, and Do you feel that has a place in this whole entrepreneurial spirit discussion?
Let me think about that for 1 second. Of course, collaboration is always good. I do believe that the collaboration of teams and continuing to garner ideas and thoughts from other teams does help add to the diversity of perspectives, because each one of us comes to, there's that example, it's such a great one, where a consultant might show a number 9. It looks like a number 9 to some people or a number 6 to other people. And it depends on which side of the room you're standing on.
Hmm.
So I really think if we can keep that perspective thought in mind, that it just depends, and each department and departments within an organization, as they collaborate, they each have a different perspective. One of my mentors many years ago to me said, Steph, every story has more than 2 sides, is multiple sides, and you have to look at it from all angles to come up with the best solution.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I've come to discover that nothing in life has just one side. There's no piece of paper that has just one side. There's no
Right.
coin that has just one side. There's nothing that has just one side. It either has at least two sides or it has more sides. So whenever you're looking
Sure.
at things from one side, just know that you are sidetracked. Now, having said that, let's talk about team building, like building teams to create an entrepreneurial culture. What do you think can be done? I know you mentioned something about teaching before, but what more can be done on the team level, and aside from collaboration, what more can be done to create that ownership culture on a team level? Because you gave an analogy of how that one way to describe that spirit we're talking about is when you see a garbage on the floor, are you going to pick it up because it's not your garbage, or regardless of the fact that it's not your garbage, or you're going to walk past it and say it's not my garbage? So how do we foster an ownership mentality in a team structure, in an organizational setting?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I think that it comes down to giving people the authority and letting them know that they not only have a responsibility to do what's in the best interest of a company, but that they have the authority to do it and that you have their back. So the term "stand in the gap" came from my boss, where I would say to her, such and such needs to be done, and it's impacting my work performance because no one is doing it. Can I just take that on and do it? And she said to me, if you're willing to stand in the gap, I've got your back all day long. And all I needed to know was that I wasn't going to get in trouble for doing it, and I would take on the extra work because it made my life easier. So I think allowing folks that freedom to have that entrepreneurial mindset of, I'm a part of this, and I'm a part of this, and the success of the organization and this project leads to this goal, and this objective means better for me and better for the company. So I think, again, fostering that idea within individuals that we all own the positive outcomes or the negative outcomes, and letting them drive toward actions that feed that successful outcome is the entrepreneurial spirit.
Wow. Okay. And that is really fundamental. You made mention of having a boss who had your back. So
Hmm.
that's some leadership there. That's some environmental enhancement there that made it possible for you to go all out. So what would you recommend for someone who doesn't have that kind of boss that you had, someone whose boss doesn't necessarily have his or her back in her entrepreneurial endeavors to make to do the things that she feels needs to be done within the context of that organization? Because I've seen people who do things to make the company better, but those things do not add to their KPIs, and those things are not rewarded because those things are not within the scope of the person's jurisdictions per se. So they only judge the person's performance based on what was expected. So even when the person goes over and above trying to get other things working, it could not be, it could just fall flat. It could go unrewarded or unrecognized or uncompensated. Right? We've
Yeah.
seen situations when someone displayed entrepreneurial spirit, displayed creativity out of the boundaries of his job definition
Yeah.
and responsibilities in a way that saved some money for the company or made some money for the company and doesn't get compensated for that effort because it was not necessarily his job, or according to the
Yeah.
books they don't have any way to fit that expense in, right? I don't know if you get what I'm
Yeah.
trying to say, but
I do.
so
I do. I got it.
what would you say to that
Yeah.
kind of person or in that kind of situation?
Yeah, well, we talked just you just described two different scenarios, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about the one where they perform an activity that really doesn't benefit the KPIs and it isn't part of the goals of the organization. So I might say, I used to come in I'm making this up because I didn't, but it's a great idea. I came in every Monday and I brought in a beautiful bouquet of flowers for a bunch of the desks. So it just made the environment happier and everybody loved it and it smelled nice and well, I'm not getting rewarded for that. Even though it had a positive impact on the organization,
Hmm.
it it didn't do anything overall. So I could see that my boss wouldn't recognize that. However, if you take the other side of that and you have a boss and you are doing things that are looking out for the organization, that are bettering the organization, they're saving money, saving time, being more efficient, enhancing the culture, and they don't have your back, get a new job. That's actually what I would say because you cannot squash, a leader cannot squash an entrepreneurial spirit or someone that is a go getter, that's a high achiever. As soon as that person feels that they are not adding value and they're not being, usually high achievers don't need outward, they love money and bonuses and things like that, but usually high achievers get their motivation from internal,
Hmm.
and as soon as that's squashed, that's some serious damage to that person, and I recommend they look for a place where they can continue to grow as an individual.
Hmm. So how about the second scenario that I painted where the person doesn't get rewarded or compensated for, you know, bringing in some good money to the company?
Well, that to me is part of that second scenario that I described. If they're not getting compensated, they're not getting any benefit and value for the continued help that they give for the organization and there's no recognition, then they should look for somewhere where they get recognized,
Oh.
unless they don't need it. Again, often high achievers don't look for money or bonuses, but the pat on the back or the great job in the meeting is all they need. Often for me, achieving, yes, again, money is great. I had kids to put through college, but I am very competitive. So when I complete a project successfully, that's considered like a win to me. And it's equivalent to me playing sports when I was younger. And I feel really good about that. I don't need a lot extra. So each individual is different what they need. But if there's no recognition at all and they're not feeling good about it, and they're not feeling like they're committed, not committed, if they're not supporting the mission, then I think that they should look for a job that really brings them the fulfillment that they need.
Okay, yeah. Thank you for recapping that. Because for me, I feel there are lots of people who get their motivation from, something that has a cash value, right?
Mm.
Because at the end of the day, if the person is in a job and gets a paycheck, it means the person cares about getting paid. In as much as the person has a heart for just making things work, right? So because I understand, your perspective, and I feel like there are lots of corporations, there are lots of structures and leadership systems that take advantage of that, and because they know that there are people who will just make do with a pat on the back, they just give a pat on the back when they could do more, when they should be compensating, when they should be rewarding, when they should be shouting on the mountaintops and giving that person the promotion, or whatever the person needs to go to the next level. So that for me is something that I've observed, and I think the way you responded to that also makes perfect sense. And that brings me to my next question, because I've come to understand that fostering entrepreneurial spirit in the corporate world of business has to be put in context, because there's the way a startup company runs or a small company runs, and there's the way a large corporation runs. I've come to observe over the years that startup companies are more inclined to stirring up that entrepreneurial spirit in people, because In startup companies, you wear many hats, but in larger corporations, it's kind of, set up in a way that even if you had the entrepreneurial spirit, you would your fire will be quenched. Let me put it that way, because of the bottlenecks, the bureaucratic systems, and just the way things are set up, right? So, are there lessons that you feel can be implemented in the larger corporations that we could steal from the smaller businesses?
Yeah, I think so. So I was in a large corporation, a couple large corporations after my own small business and before this. And I think the way I did that was still in a stand in the gap capacity. The director said, we need to do blank. And I know his hair is on fire and he's got a lot going on. I said, hey, I can take that off your plate.
Hmm.
I Someone told me yesterday that you have to be a visionary to kind of see these openings and these gaps that are available to you. I see them very clearly, but I just suggested the folks keep their ears open, their keep listening and keep their eyes open to I want, we should have any words like that are also great words to hear from a sales perspective about organic growth for a customer. It's listening to a need. And if someone has a need and you can solve that problem and become the solution provider, you can have that entrepreneurial spirit. That's what an entrepreneur is. They see a problem and a need and they fulfill it by a new service that's better, faster, less expensive, whatever the case may be. So it could be organizing a lunch and learn. It could be taking care of the company picnic. It could be stepping in and taking additional responsibilities when someone goes on maternity leave or is out sick. There's a variety of ways to do that. And here's the benefit. I want to go back to something that you said. My benefit that I'm going to say now is that you learn as an individual. You gain new skills and experience.
Hmm.
And I think that's a really important thing to keep in mind because as a business owner, I'll dispute what you said that somebody does something extra, they should just get paid. I have never had a job where I immediately got paid. I might have gotten a small spot bonus, but usually someone performs extra work for a period of time and then they would get a bonus or raise at the end of the year.
Yeah.
It's not an immediate gratification thing. And honestly, as a business owner, I never rewarded people like that. I would very clearly say to people, this is your job, and I expect you to do it well. If you go over and above that, that's extra. And
Yeah.
you should get more compensation and bonus. I'm not paying you extra for doing the job that I hired you for, that I give you a
Absolutely.
great salary and benefits for.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think that just because they do a great job at the bare minimum level of expectations that are on their job description, they should get a bonus.
No, no, no.
I don't agree with that at all.
That's not the entrepreneurial spirit we're talking about. I wasn't necessarily saying they should get an immediate bonus or compensation, because I understand how these things work. I understand how these
Yeah.
organizations work. I was saying, if at the end of that year, the person has hopes and expectations that, oh, having done this and this and this, I think I should be in a good position for a good bump or something compensationary, and then get a
Yeah.
pat on the back, say, you know what, you did well. We really appreciate your work. We appreciate all the value you brought on. We appreciate this. You know what, just keep doing what you're doing, and we'll see how it goes in the next year, right? Because sometimes one good turn deserves another. Yes. So, what would you say we should look out for as indicators of you know growing in the entrepreneurial spirit as an individual? What would you say are the indicators? So if you were talking to someone out there and the person wants to become more entrepreneurial, what would you recommend for the person? What KPIs or what indicators would you say the person should work on?
Well, besides joining my Stand in the Gap coaching method, coaching program where I teach it, I think the first thing to do is to start taking some risk, some calculated risk. I'm not saying go do something crazy, but we need to stretch ourselves beyond what we think we can do and evaluate the pros and cons, perform a SWOT analysis, whatever the case may be, to really start stretching ourselves. And that is, to me, the number one thing that folks need to do. Put their fears beside them and just take action.
Wow, thank you so much. Would you like to tell us something about what you would like to tell yourself? You said you have about 40 years in the corporate world, 40 years or 30 years of experience in the corporate world. So,
30,
okay,
please, not
30.
40.
All right. Yes. Thank you for putting that straight.
Jeez, I'm going to talk to my hairdresser.
Yeah. Thank you for putting that record straight. Now, having established that, what would you say to your younger self about becoming the person that you have become now? What would you say to your younger self to become that person faster?
Yeah, such a great question. I've been asked this a lot recently, and it definitely comes back to taking risks again. I let my fears and the fears of other people around me, supporters of mine, but that are very risk averse, I let them be louder than my dreams.
Hmm.
And I really wanted to fly when I was younger. And I don't mean fly a plane because I'm afraid of heights, but I wanted to do this and I wanted to do that and I wanted to travel and I wanted to manufacture this. And there was advice to just get a job, go to school, get a nice salary, and do one thing, frankly. And I'm not a do one thing person.
Hmm.
Maybe it's a little bit because I'm ADHD, but I like to try different things, and trying those different things really, I was able to do it later in life, but really helped me get back to what do I love to do? What brings me joy? What fills me up? What do I love doing? Because we work a lot. And so I really encourage folks to look at what they love doing and what they're good at. I had one client who had some learning disabilities, was struggling in work and school. And I said, "What are you great at?" And he said, "I'm great at organizing things." And I said, "Well, have you thought about becoming a professional organizer and getting your certification in that area? If that's what you're good at, you should find a job in that area because
Hmm.
that's when you're going to feel the best about your work."
Yeah.
He ended up getting a job as a warehouse manager and it suited him perfectly.
Wow.
So focusing on your skills and abilities and your interests is always going to be the fastest path to a fulfillment in the workforce.
Wow. You really put it so elegantly well, and I want to say thank you. I believe that's a great place to bring our conversation to a close, and I want to say thank you for all the wonderful insight. Thank you for all the powerful nuggets that you've dropped so far. I believe that those listening to us on the other side have been just sitting on the edge of your seat trying to receive all the bullets you released. So I want to say thank you for that. And to you on the other side, I believe that you've received lots of value from this conversation on how to foster entrepreneurial spirit in the corporate world of business. And definitely we did actually go outside that theme to touch on other areas that we felt would be beneficial to you. So definitely share this with your friends, your family, your coworkers, your loved ones, so that they can learn how to be better persons and so that we can have a better place that fosters entrepreneurial spirit, creativity, risk taking, and all the other things that goes along with it. So thank you for listening to this. I'll see you on the next episode. Till then, have a good one and bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.